When you think of video game formats, you probably think of cartridges, or maybe optical media like CDs and DVDs. But have you ever played video games on VHS? Would it surprise you then to know that Atari founder Nolan Bushnell and Steve Wozniak, creator of the Apple computer, once collaborated on an interactive VHS-based video game console?
I hope she didn't think it was you.
No, it wasn't me. I was watching her.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. No.
Had to be somewhere.
If you've watched this channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of 80s tech. I love the creativity that was born from the limits of technology at the time. And for me, the weirder the better. With that in mind, it's not hard to understand why I would have something like this in my collection. This is Video Challenger, a Japanese light gun game console based on VHS tapes. As you can see here, the set is comprised of a light gun and a pack-in VHS cassette called Space Challenge. The gun works like any other light gun by detecting flashing lights from the screen, which means that this will not work on a modern TV, but only on old CRTs. If the gun detects a light from the screen and a trigger pull at the same time, it registers that as a hit. If it only detects the light but no response from the trigger, the player takes damage. After playing it a bit myself, I realized that it's actually a bit more complex than people give it credit. The various objects that appear on screen flash at different frequencies, which signal to the light gun what type of object it is and how they should react. The lights, sounds, and point values change depending on the object that you're firing at. So unlike Duck Hunt on the NES, you can't cheat by aiming at a light bulb. As you might have guessed, one of the largest drawbacks is the fact that this is a VHS, which means that the contents are exactly the same every time, drastically reducing the replayability. Luckily, there were multiple VHS cassettes released, including Godzilla and even a version of Afterburner. And in case you need proof that everything was better in Japan back in those days, there was also an anime tie-in. The anime Transformers Headmasters featured Decepticons that would flash bright lights that the light gun could interact with. Imagine watching your favorite Saturday morning cartoons and being able to help blast the enemies. The show even included scenes where the human character, Daniel, carries one of these blasters, and he can be seen playing the game in some scenes. There's also a VHS based on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a UK exclusive release. I've yet to track one down. Combining realistic footage instead of computer graphics and interactive peripherals was pretty groundbreaking at the time. But Takara, the company that developed this technology, was not the only company to work on such a system. Perhaps the most well-known system is the Action Max console, made by Worlds of Wonder. This is the same company that created the iconic 80s toy Teddy Ruxpin. The Action Max eventually failed for the same reasons as the Video Challenger system. There was only one genre, the light gun shooter, and playing on VHS meant that the games played out exactly the same way every time. Little did they know that the solution for getting over these limitations was right in front of their eyes. It was the same technology behind their hit toy, Teddy Ruxpin.
Hi, my name is Teddy Ruxpin. Can you and I be friends?
I had a Teddy Ruxpin and his friend Grubby, and I remember as a kid, my brother and I thought it would be hilarious to put rock and roll cassette tapes to see Teddy Ruxpin rocking out. But to our disappointment, he didn't move at all. That's because Teddy Ruxpin tapes actually split the two streams used for stereo sound, so that one stream played the audio, and the other ran command codes which controlled the servos inside of the doll. This method of running code and media files on a single tape would turn out to be the key to getting over the limitations of VHS-based video games. But the people who found this solution was not World of Wonder. The breakthrough came from a company called Axlon, a game developer created by Atari founder Nolan Bushnell. After selling Atari to Warner Entertainment, Bushnell was looking to do something new. He found a potential partner in Steve Wozniak, who had just left Apple in 1985. Although his involvement was publicized in newspapers and magazines at the time, there isn't much official record of Steve Wozniak's direct involvement with the project at all. But even without him, they pulled together a dream team of game creators, including hitmaker Mark Turmell, who would go on to make NBA Jam and Smash TV, as well as David Crane, creator of Pitfall, A Boy and His Blob, and the founder of Activision. The leader of the project was Tom Zito, a visionary in his own right. The technology that they planned to use was called Instaswitch, which ran computer code on one section of a VHS tape, as well as multiple channels of video, which the user could toggle between. This allowed the user to essentially play a choose-your-own-adventure style game on VHS. With a CD, or even a laser disc, the laser can jump to any spot on the disc instantly. But for VHS, this would require rewinding the tape to just the right spot. Control Vision got around this by exploiting the way that TVs worked. CRTs draw a picture on the screen by shooting electrons at a phosphor-coated screen, one line at a time. Most TVs back then had a total of 480 lines on the screen, which they would redraw 60 times per second, much faster than the human eye can perceive. To make this process more smooth, the TVs would actually skip every other line, drawing all the odd-numbered lines first, and then coming back and drawing all the even-numbered lines. Many VHS tapes used a technique called interlacing, in which the frames made of odd lines and the frames made of even lines were slightly offset, which would create the illusion of a higher frame rate, resulting in a smoother picture. The Control Vision instead encoded completely different video tracks on even-numbered frames and odd-numbered frames, so that they effectively had two different tracks at once. The machine would only display either the even-numbered frames or the odd-numbered frames based on the player's choice. For example, odd-numbered lines might have the player pass the ball to a teammate, and even numbers might have him take the shot. The system would also save information from the tape temporarily in a buffer to avoid the need to rewind. The team built a prototype using a repurposed ColecoVision combined with a VCR. Fellow Axlon partner Tom Zito led the team developing several demo games, and after they had a few of them under their belt, they pitched the project to Hasbro, who agreed to invest some much-needed capital into the project. Nicknamed Project Nemo for Never Ever Mention Outside, Hasbro eventually settled on the much less inspired name Control Vision, and it was slated for a 1989 release. However, the high production costs were so prohibitively expensive that Hasbro decided to pull the project just months before its release. Despite having spent $20 million in R&D costs and $4 million in game dev, the console never saw the light of day. The games, however, do live on. After the project was cancelled, Tom Zito bought the rights back to many of the games from Hasbro. Several years later, Sega was looking for studios to develop FMV, or full motion video games, for their new Sega CD system. Zito seized the opportunity and released several of the original Control Vision games now on CD, for this new console, including the infamous game Night Trap. A game so controversial that it got its own Senate hearing. But that is a story for another video.